District, April 14th, 4 o'clock. We have a quorum, understand, we've not got a room for on-rate the meeting,
Correct,
but we have a quorum with.
yes. Call, Director Paul? Director Paul?
I'm sure.
Chair Riley,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Do you have another copy of the?
Yes, I have one right there.
I reviewed the packet online, but I never got the hard copy. Thank you.
Oh, they never made it?
No. Thank you.
Thank you, wait for Sarah. Okay. Well, okay. Well, let's go with first item on the agenda. Any additions or corrections?
For me.
We do have a correction on the first item.
Item 2,
Yes.
it's the update to an exhibit.
Let's, okay, we'll pick that up when we get item 2. Any members of the public on Zoom, no?
Chair Riley, we have no members of the public on Zoom.
Okay, proceeding with the agenda. Versus consideration of adoption of the minutes of the February 18th meeting. I will have no comments on it, and I will move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And carries. Thank you for that. Item number 2, we'll proceed with the correction of the subject matter.
Good afternoon, Chair Riley, and committee members. So this item 2 recommends authorization of contract with Telemetrics for monitoring and control systems at the Sleepy Hollow Steelhead Rearing Facility, and we have Thomas Christensen here to provide details for this item. Okay, good afternoon, members of the board. The slight correction there is Thomas Christensen with Monterey Peninsula. Slight correction to the attachment, and an older version was attached, so the total is not 34,908, but it's 35,408, just $500 extra. And that's the only correction. But this item is basically, we have Telemetrics give us support at the Sleepy Hollow Steelhead Rearing Facility. It's controlled by a computer system that's very sophisticated that sends out alarms if certain parameters are not met while steelhead are in the facility, such as water flow, water temperature, the loss of power. It also allows us to see what the steelhead facility is doing online, especially at night during storms. We often have fish in the facility in December before the river is fully connected, and sometimes if we lose power or if there are alarms that are happening in the middle of the night, you can kind of see what's happening instead of driving immediately out there. We've been working with Telemetrics since the updated facility. He's done all the programming and is very responsive to technical issues out there. So that's the item before you. And this is right in line with the costs that have been in previous years. Any questions?
Did you change the number to, what was it?
So it's going to be instead of 34908, it's 35408.
5408.
So this is essentially an annual.
That is correct.
And
Yes, annual contract with Telemetrics. Yes,
the cost is in line with what you expected.
yes, absolutely.
And it's for as needed support, so if we could end up with less cost, if
Yeah, that happens sometimes that it is slightly less. Yeah.
One question in general, I haven't seen it this way, and I'm wondering, does this cost show up in the mitigation or the conservation?
This is part of the mitigation program with all the operations and maintenance of the Sleepy Hollow steelhead rearing
That's the
facility.
mitigation category.
That's correct.
And then, let's see. What's the ballpark annual operating costs of
Well, we typically have around the biggest expenses are the power out there. And when we do have a 4-year run, the power costs are about $60,000 to $70,000 for pumping the water through the facility and all the computer stuff. And then we typically have 50,000 for maintenance in case something fails. So many years that is not expended, but it is included in the budget in case a pump needs to be replaced or some computer systems fail.
and the staffing?
Yeah, I don't have.
The big picture.
Yeah, I don't have all that right in front of me.
Ballpark, just,
we go through this during the budget phase. This is part of the project's budget. I can try to pull it up, it would take me a minute.
So it's just a curiosity question. No.
For the assets that you mentioned, the computers and pumps and things that you have a schedule for replacement.
Almost everything there has been updated and is brand new, so we don't currently have any replacement schedule for electrical panels or pumps at this time. That's something that we should look into for the
Would that be okay for
future.
planning, budgeting purposes?
Yeah, I think so. I would work with Michelle on that. Yeah, so some of the staff are spread out on various things during some of the same staff that do the fish rescue are also helping operate the facility. So that would, be some of the cost. And then we also have the next item coming up. We have seasonal workers that help us out on the weekend. And that's also part of the cost of the roll up.
I have a little less than 200,000.
Okay,
Does that sound right?
yeah.
And we will go into adequate details during our budget discussions, but like you said, oil is the biggest component, a little above 75,000, and then this operations consultant at 35, and then road maintenance work 20,000, and USA Section 10 SRF evaluations, big tag.
Yeah, that's an item that has typically we've expended quite a bit less, but it is written in the permit that we should have the ability to carry out certain functions related to the tagging and monitoring of steelhead, which includes the pit tags, which are the tags that we buy to monitor where the fish are and also maintain the counting stations.
And the district owns all the equipment for this, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
On the equipment side, we do have an asset replacement schedule. So we try to set aside funding for assets that need to be replaced based on their useful life. And that will be covered in the budget book as well.
Okay.
And then one last question on this point, the dam removal discussion. Would the Sleepy Hollow facility be piece of that analysis? I mean, are they sufficiently connected that they are connected?
Well, the next steps in the discussion with regards to the removal of Los Padres Dam or the actual cleaning up or fixing up of Los Padres Dam is to look at the impacts from flooding if there is a dam removal project. They're focusing on the Cachalla area and the resident neighborhoods in the Como Valley Village area, such as Paso Hondo and Escaline Bridge area. And so Sleepy isn't really a focus of that right now. It's mainly in the mitigation camp as far as related to water extraction on the main stem of the Conemaugh River.
Yeah, the Sleepy Hollow would more likely come back up in conversation in two ways. There was a moment in time where a previous National Marine Fisheries Service person, Joyce Ambrosius, said, well, once CalAM's within their legal limit off the river, then you don't need this facility anymore. And but we might have an interest in it as NIMS to do some other research. So there's a little bit of discussion about its future. No, but then we upgraded. We upgraded the intake so it could handle lower flows, prior seasons, upgrade all the equipment. You know, it was a brand new project as of a couple of years ago. Recently, and Thomas is in on this, there's been discussion. Certain detractors say you should only locate fish to the river and don't reel them and raise them. And there's some data Corey showed me, and there's a push to now try to have three types of data sets: a control group that just has never been rescued or reared, rescues that are relocated to just the river or possibly even now the lagoon as a possibility, right? And then those that are reared in the facility. And if that ever
track those separate.
Yeah, because now you've got the radio read pit tags, and so you've got greater control of following your fish. But the general feeling has always been our real fish are the superfish. They're the more advanced of the fish. But should it ever come that a policy of just relocation becomes the norm, we would not say, oh, great, then let's hold on to the Sleepy Hollow facility for the one or two droughts that happen once every 15 years. We would very likely have to have a decision made over you either want that facility or you don't, because it would be in the district's interest at that point to shut it down, dismantle it and everything. It's on an in-holding anyway. That land never transferred because the Bureau of Land Management under the first Trump administration didn't want any new assets. But we would have had and will continue to have Sleepy Hollow as an in-holding. NIMS was going to take over the management function inside the federal government, so they would be our new landlord. So Bureau of Land Management would take the whole watershed around the San Clemente. NIMS would take responsibility for our easement, but we would still run the facility. But if there ever comes a time where they say, oh, we don't want you rearing except in dire circumstance of drought, I think we would be very unlikely to say, okay, we're going to keep that facility and then only turn it on once every 25 years or 20 years or something like that. So that would have to be a decision made in the future. Otherwise, for this, whatever transitional period that we're still taking on the responsibility, even though the mitigation for pumping is no longer the reason for it, but it is until we know better otherwise. So the monitoring of the river and the watershed and fish still involves rearing, rescue and rearing. So as long as that continues to be our mitigation program, and we don't have new findings to undo the mitigation program, and we probably won't for could be decades. But anyway, we will keep it, and it will be separate from the decision to deal with keep low spot rates or don't keep low spot rates.
So in terms of control in the future, NIMS
Yep, National Marine Fisheries Service.
NIMS has as much a say as we do.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, yeah, because they approved our rural and rescue management plan, our RRMP. So it's their permit. whatever it is, section 10 permit.
Do we split the costs with us?
No, that's not how it works.
That's what I was going with.
Yes.
I have one question.
Sure.
Was the thinking when this program was started that it, at some point it would no longer be needed?
Yes.
But-
And that's why, we added as a longer term goal to relook at the mitigation program. So in 1990, there was an EIR on extractions from the river and all levels of extraction. There was none that didn't need environmental mitigation. And so it was determined that because of the extractions on the river, environmental mitigation was needed. This is one of the mitigations. And so, in the words of Joyce Ambrosius, so as soon as Calam's done, you can get off the river and you don't need to rescue fish anymore. That's not what we've learned about the river over time. So now we know, we've got a river that was dealt with that hand. It's in an environment where it's overpopulated, it's overgone. We only get 21 inches of rain a year. And right now, Potrero Creek is dry. And so it didn't make it past April 1st.
Mm.
And so it's just, it's a struggling watershed. But back to some of our strategic discussion, the board will have to decide, should habitat and fish be protected? Whose job is it? We've been doing it. Should it continue to be our job? And if it is, great, but we have to justify it differently
And fund it differently.
and fund it possibly differently, because as Dave Laredo pointed out, your water rates and charges are related to the provision of water related services. And so if it's not a mitigation for the water production, then it's an environmental job. It needs to be tied back to water supply to make it easiest for us to fund it. But it could be that if it's determined that it shouldn't be the district's job, then somebody else will have to come in or nobody will do it. Yeah, so we don't know. The Conservancy could suddenly become a $2 million a year organization and do all this stuff. Unlikely. So but we don't have to make that decision this year. I do believe that even if that was a path that we wanted to be on, to undo a program of mitigation, you have to have findings. And in order to have findings, you need data. And I'm not sure we're collecting the data we would need right now to have findings.
I think we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. We have all the stream flow data and we have all the habitat assessments. So it's a matter of time, as Dave stated. We're in new territory because of Cal-Am's legal pumping. So this year is actually going to be really interesting because this is, a classic below normal year. So we are going to learn as Cal-Am is within its limits how far the river is going to dry back, and I think that's going to be really interesting information. Last year was above normal, and the year before that was, I think, wet. So we didn't get a real good sense of how the river responds in normal to below normal years. So that's where the time comes in and the monitoring of how the river dries back. We lost the river last year for about a week in the Rancho Quinata area for probably close to 300 yards. And so we do fish rescue there and then the tributaries, as Dave stated. So
I don't see this issue rising to the level of, policy discussion, at least for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's probably good. But meanwhile, we gather data. Rescue fish, yes. Yeah.
I'm going to approve, we recommend board approval of this contract.
Nice.
Public comment.
Sorry. Public comment.
That's fine.
Yeah. No doubt.
So who,
Is all of the public comment?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
All right, back to the committee.
let's vote.
Motions, and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 4, reclassification of a student leader coordinator position. Oh, I'm sorry. 2.
It was 3, the field.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, for those on the phone or not here, Thomas Christensen once again for the Water District. This item is related to our seasonal contracted limited terms. This is an annual item. And we are bringing this to the board for all the work that will occur this summer, including fish rescue, operation of Sleepy Hollow in this on the weekends, fish population surveys that are done, as well as in-channel vegetation management in preparation for high winter flows. We're seeking funding for 3 limited term positions. We have currently one individual working for us right now. And these are limited term positions for less than 1,000 hours in a fiscal year. So they don't get benefits or anything like that. But that is up to 68,610. In the past, we have not expended that much of those dollars, but we always have to kind of keep in mind that if we have droughts or heat waves, that sometimes we have to help these folks a little longer than normal. And let's see, I think that about covers the majority of their work as far as for summertime work and late fall work.
We've been doing this for years.
Yes, absolutely.
3 people.
Yeah.
Are they usually students? Is that
Yeah, they're usually students or recently graduated from college. They're, looking to build their resumes and get experience out in the field and working hands-on.
People. Yeah. Students, all that, profession, everything.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I don't.
I don't have any other.
So I move we accept the staff recommendation to recommending this to the board.
So, second that, there's no public comment. I mean,
Correct.
okay,
Correct. We have no members of the public. We have a staff person observing the meetings.
okay, but all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon.
All right, thank you, Tom. Now, item number 4, reclassifying one position, section position.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Riley and Director Paul. This item seeking to reclass a position. It's seeking to require more of a skill set than the previous position. The need of this position is to support one of the district's functions. It's outlined in its rules. The district is required to prepare an annual report for the board and the general manager on the production of all small water systems and all people that own wells within the district. So not only CalAm, all the private wells. And this person is to coordinate, work with landowners, educate, and get annual meetings and compile them into a report. As well as this person, when people apply for a water distribution system, and it goes through Stephanie Lockscoop, We have to assemble lots of historic documentation and create a technical packet that talks about the well and past use, and sometimes calculations are used to set limits on different things depending on the level to which the permit rises. And this person will assist with the technical side of building that packet so it can go to legal review, as well as this person will learn the stream gauging and monitor well networks, as well as how to do weekend rounds on aquifer storage or recovery when it's operating. So it's the difference that I would say between the two positions is one was focused directly on the metering program and keeping meters on people. This person, we're requiring a skill set of a database skill set and a geographic information skill set, because we've gone through and built what we call the property files, which every property APN has a set of historic documents in it, as well as is organized within our geographic informational system. And that's actually used to go out and find the wells when we need to go out visit landowners. It keeps all this information. So the historic information of the district is stored in a format that you need to have these types of skill sets to access it and work with it. And so that's where we're trying to kind of move into that direction, as well as this position is created at a 1 or 2 technician level. So a person can come in and have experience working with the hydrologists, as well as there's the way we're trying to set this up is there's an option should a hydrologist leave. We would have that one of the requirements for the hydrologist would be a set of experience working in these sets. So we would have somebody that could move over and into a higher level position, and then we could hire again. So it's kind of trying to set this up so that these programs become a perpetual thing where we're having people, we're not losing people in a way that it can keep it self-standing.
I have one question.
Okay.
Okay,
Go for it.
this also tied to the plan to update the private road area and the enforcement of reporting. And don't you have, I don't know, 80% of the
We're 98% of the wells.
Yes. So what we've done is there was in the past letters, physical letters mailed out, and then another physical letter if we didn't get it. And then the district kind of from the 2000s would start to go down an enforcement route. We've found works better is there's a lot more technologies out there now where we can work with the well owners and we can say, just take a picture of your well and text it to us. We'll accept that and we put it in the well file. And it actually, one, is easier access for the well owners, and 2, it's more accurate data because we actually have a picture of the actual meter. And people try, but the meters are all different and you might read it wrong. And so it's actually helping us in that form. And we also realized we work with landowners to get access agreements to their properties, because some of these second homes for people, they're traveling, they don't want to be bothered to read their meter. So we've said, we'll come out and read it for you if you want us to. And that actually helps the well owners as well, and the landowner, and at the same time is giving us higher quality data because we're reading it. And so I agree with Derek, through this type changing of these methods to be more of the carrot than the stick. It's helped us with it much closer to 100%, around 97 or 98% of people reporting. And then those ones that don't report or refuse access to us are the ones that we go down the enforcement route.
Okay, there's kind of 3 levels of enforcement when you think about it. One is we have a rule that all wells need to be metered, except there's a few grandfathered unmetered wells that have a land use reporting system. Jump in, John, anytime, but it's so almost all the wells that can be metered have been metered, but there is that new well owner, you get a letter, you must meter your well, and our person goes out and ensures that well has a meter on it, and so compliant. Then there's the annual reporting, and as John's pointed out, it's a self-reporting regime, but not everybody self-reports. So between November and February or that time period, the meter coordinator has been going out and doing the meter reads. So we read it for them. They're non-compliant because they didn't self-report, but we read it for them. And then when there are, so these days we don't set pumping limits per se. However, previously metered in the alluvium do have pumping limits. So when I say we don't set pumping limits, we do in the alluvium, we don't in the fractured rock. So in the alluvium, we check and see how they're doing. And was it 2 years ago? I think we learned that Quail Golf Course was exceeding their limit. Through the same reporting last year, we said that reporting in Hidden Hills, which is a single well in a single location, actually is kind of pulling from the Seaside Basin. But I think on a map, it looks like it's outside of the jurisdictional boundary. But Lord knows we got to stick with those jurisdictional boundaries, right? With the Seaside Watermaster. But its losses were very high as identified through the reporting. And so we called Cal Am and we're meeting there. They're not going to do anything about it, but we put them on notice that your loss levels, as at least reported through, just like any other well owner, they're sending us their annual report. And indicated losses were high. So we will from time to time look at those kind of performance specifications, say what's going on here. And so we know we need to go back and look at a couple of pumpers in the alluvium to see if they're within their limits. But generally speaking, that's what this person does now with some other skills so that they can, in the slower periods, kind of contribute elsewhere in their well monitoring and water quality monitoring.
And the thing I forgot to mention too is that we implemented looking at the changes of titles each month, so we can reach out to people when if they need an inspection from downstairs with their fixtures, we can coordinate with that. So it's not district coming to your house, at like 3 different times, so we can have more of a flood that way. And this person will also be educated on the district's permitting rules as far as what's going to be required for them. If they want to change land use or something like that. We found that having the meter person go out and say, you have to put a meter on your well, and then when they sign off on it, you're compliant with this rule. People were misunderstanding that and thinking I'm done. And then they would find out, oh no, I have to go into the water distribution system permit, and then they would show up cranky. And so we're trying to get people educated. We're the first time we're talking to them. We're on there, and we're on creating situations for other colleagues that could have angry people showing up at their counter.
I appreciate that very much.
Good point. Okay, I will that
It's better to be helpful. And it sounds like it's exactly what you're trying to do. That's good. I have one question. So, Chair, you mentioned in your memo, John, that upgrading this position is part of restructuring the division, the water resources division. Is there more to you? Are you thinking of doing something more than restructuring this?
No, I think this is frankly me correcting something that I didn't realize I was doing when we restructured the program, because we used to have a hydrography program coordinator that retired, and we had a couple of hydrologists. What we have done is we've changed everybody to be hydrologists. And then now, and people used to work not cross programs. There was one person that did all the surface water, and then 2 people that ran the ASR program and did all the groundwater and supported the water master and that. What we've done is we've created 2 positions that are integrated across all those, so anybody can do any of those jobs. When we did that, it's too much work to have them also run the meter program and do that with the one with two people staffing. So what I did was I created the meter program coordinator to the work is required by the district rules. But in doing that, I removed an aspect of the person that was doing this previously. I worked with the district for 37, something, I don't know, yeah, 37 years. So he really knew all the rules. He knew the lands. He'd seen the properties change hands multiple times. So he could go out and be the person in the field telling people about the rules, that type of stuff. And I didn't realize I was removing that function.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, moving forward. With, I'll make a motion that we, as recommended,
I second it.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
There was any, I guess we have still no public.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chair, please confirm each time that there are no public members present.
Thanks for that advice. So confirmed for that one.
Correct.
I'll try to
No
do it in the
members of the
future.
public, correct.
Okay, item number 5, treasurer's report for February.
Yes, I'll be going over the next 3 items, and I'd like to share my screen at this point. Okay, I can't see my screen, but it's on there.
Can you enlarge it on your end?
I don't even see the screen here. Okay, I think I'll just go work. So this is a routine item that comes to the committee every month. This is the treasurer's report for the month of February. And we look at the beginning and ending balances with major fees, deposits, and disbursements. So for the month of February, we started with about 30.5 million in cash and investments and ended the month with a little over 32 million. We had fee deposits of about 4.8 million, which included 3 million in water sales revenue, about 1.2 million in grants revenue for the Pure Water Monterey, and a little over $500,000 in user fees. And then disbursements were about 3.3 million, and that was mostly 1.4 million in purchased water and 1.2 million in a grant that was paid to Monterey One Water. Exhibit provides a detailed listing of checks, and then Exhibit C provides a listing of statement, comparison of budget versus actuals up till the month of February. And if you notice on the second to last column, that the budget that's included here is what was adopted in the mid-year. So far we are on track for the operating revenues and expenses, but we are behind on the project's expenses because that's dependent on the pace of work for the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. And that's the high level overview. I will note that in the mid-year, we set aside about 3.3 million for the water supply charge reserve disbursements. However, the preliminary approval from the court will happen in early part of June. So we won't be cutting checks this fiscal year. That will likely happen, towards the end of the calendar year. And so we will check with our auditor and see what's the appropriate way to expense this disbursement because we budgeted for it. And there are accounting guidelines surrounding that, but that's just an additional piece of information. We have the budget to cut the checks, but we won't be cutting them until next fiscal year.
Dave, will we be getting a report on the status of that next meeting?
There is a settlement agreement that's gone back and forth between the plaintiff's attorney and then our attorneys, and I think we're there. They haven't put in a name yet for the CPRA fund. That's the charitable end balance fund. We have suggested United Way for the ratepayer low income ratepayer, protection program they run. I talked to Richard Rauschmeyer at the PUC about how we could ensure that the general rate case approves the ratepayer contribution to this fund.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. I think we are straying from the agenda.
So the answer is yes, there's still a few things that they need to get named. And so I don't, he said June, it might be as soon as May, but it's certainly not ready yet. And so they need to approve that, and then that starts the timeline. And there's a whole table of calendar. And
So we understand update at our next meeting. That was really my.
so I'm not sure we're gonna be ready at the next meeting because it all spins off of the submittal that
Okay,
is either a day away or a week away or 2 weeks away.
okay.
We'll get a status report now, yeah, okay.
And so, and then I have one question if I can find it. Any of these funds, I know we're small players, but based on what's going on nationally with the interest and anyway, all the funds and all the banking information, are any of these funds a little more vulnerable, do you think, to anything that's happening nationally, or just I'm sure there's nothing we can do, but I'm just wondering if there's anything we should be watching.
I will look into the three funds that we have: mitigation, conservation.
Ones that we have, yeah.
Yeah.
I think our investments is what it's done.
Oh,
I'm done, yes, I'm sorry.
oh, okay. The investment accounts. No, because we have multi-bank securities, which is FDIC insured. So we have, let's say, the exact number, I think we're more than a dozen CDs, and each of those CDs is for 250,000 or less. So all the CDs are insured. Then we have RAFE, which is a well-diversified portfolio, mostly in US Treasuries. And, they're all not triple A, but AA plus rated. And it is supported it's run by the State Comptroller's Office. We have 14 million there. That's pretty secure. And then we have Class, which is we have 500,000 there. That's also a secure portfolio.
And we have been impacted though by so the unexpected sell-off of US Treasury bonds. Whenever interest rates are affected, our reinvestment rates are affected. The way he's laddered out our negotiable CDs, though, the intent is to never have to sell one. But when interest rates either rise or fall, the price or the value of your negotiable CD is affected.
Mhm.
So if we had to sell it, we could end up taking a loss. If interest rates have gone up, the price would be going down,
Yeah,
vice versa. Well,
Yeah, no, you're right.
if interest rates are going up, yeah, your price
Then it goes down.
in order to equalize the interest rate on that purchase, but our intent is to never sell them, that they all mature. But the reinvestment risk has been affected.
uh-huh,
Both. This week, I think you might say, didn't we just have one reinvestment last week?
Yeah, we have a lot of portfolio, and the likelihood is right now the interest rates will go down, which means we'll have unrealized gains in our portfolio. And if we sell, we'll sell them for a gain, but things can obviously change. And it's a laddered portfolio. So we go, yeah, so things come due at regular intervals, and that's just prudent investment philosophy, and we follow that.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Dave, coming from the investment investor.
Employees who are looking at their forecasts, but
I bet.
they've done that. Just like our 401ks and our IRAs.
That's a good point, because none of our investments are in the stock market. We are forbidden by law to invest in the stock market like CalPERS does. CalPERS can have negative swings, but as a treasury portfolio, we invest in high grade credit instruments, so we don't get that wide fluctuation that best funds and CalPERS might be subject to.
Mhm. So as long as the US Treasury remains solvent, the insurance part should hold.
Yeah,
I mean, the FDIC.
FDIC insurance, so, yeah, right. The likelihood of that happening is almost nil.
I hope you're right.
This thing was set up in 1933 when there were bank runs, and then the president decided that, you know, to have a well-functioning financial system, the government needs to be the final stop and ensure cities. And that's how, you know, like we entered an era of economic prosperity because people could trust the money that was in the banks. So I think that thing's gonna stay as far as I know.
Stray, but the investment policy that you approve every year has that list of things that you can invest in. We voluntarily took ourselves out of the reverse repurchase agreement, but collateralized debt obligations are on that list. And those were deemed to be very secure. They were 2000. So the word of what is secure changes over time. Once the rating agencies took those CDOs, CMOs, and basically said, "Oh, if you've got a pool of, large thousands of entries, thousands of mortgages, yeah, sure, there's a tranche that's lower grade there, but that's a small amount." So they would stress test the portfolio and say, "Oh yeah, these are all AAA." So they came through with AAA ratings, and then they would get reinsurers like AIG to provide backstop insurance. And that's when they discovered that if your house is underwater, that more than 5% of a collateralized debt obligation could be 30%, could be 40%, and that's why they failed. So we could be in investments that could do the same thing, but we choose not to. Who knows, in 3 years.
Yeah, thank you for that point. We have investments in our investment policy that could be deemed riskier, and we haven't invested in those, like repurchase agreements and reverse repos, they call it. We don't have any funds there invested.
Maybe a long time before that becomes popular again. Right. People have memories.
Yeah, it also depends on relative strength of the yield curves and whether you have an inverted yield curve and things that are going on, because sometimes just US Treasuries would be a good and wise purchase. And we've had it in our portfolio from time to time. Because you chase yield if you can find it with security. Mike was whispering over here about risk versus reward. But the other one, and the reason I volunteered to take reverse repurchase agreements up was that we shouldn't be allowed to invest in something that I can't figure out. That I don't.
Before moving to a vote, any public comment at all? I don't think anyone's online. Just to confirm, no one's online for public comment.
No, the one attended this.
Correct. We have no members of the public, Charlie.
Okay, proceed to
I move that we recommend that the board adopt the report.
and I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll go to the next, item number 6. Software maintenance agreement.
So the next item recommends authorization of, that's number 6. So authorization of various software maintenance agreements. The district has subscriptions for a variety of softwares. There are 15 of those that are listed in the staff report. And at this point, we're estimating based on previous usage. So that's why the recommendation is to recommend authorizing contracts with these various products, and also have a 5% contingency because we haven't received final quotations from each one of them. And these subscriptions could change at short notice. Without going into detail for each one, I'll just say that there are 3 categories of subscriptions that we have. The first one is software packages that provide support to customer-facing programs like Acela and Kisters. So Stella is used to process permit applications, connection charges, property level reporting, and then we have Kisters that's used for stream flow and rainfall data processing. So that's like the front-facing software, and then we have backend support that includes softwares for finance and accounting. That's the Tyler Encode. We have document handling softwares like Docuware, Adobe, and Microsoft, and then we have quite a few for cybersecurity needs. These include softwares for like firewall protection, spam protection, and recovery and backup of district data. And then finally, we have the GIS software, which has both a front-facing and a backward-facing component. And that's primarily being used for a variety of database needs, including water protection data. And right now, we are also trying to build up the water supply database, and we'll use that for reimbursements. I was trying to show you some of these softwares because this is the Kister software, and John can probably provide more details here on what it does. But it's a real time. Sorry. Yeah.
I think we will do a word demo.
I think we might have. So I won't go into the details. So that's that, and then we have the GIS. GIS maps for various database needs. But anyway, so that's just an overview. And staff is requesting about 200,000 in all these software maintenance agreements for the coming fiscal year.
And one of the things we're trying to do is separate some of those annual renewals between April, May, June. Because these all come at once, and you have this massive set of annual contract renewals, typically in June or July.
Well, we're spacing out some of the contracts that come in front of the board in May, and we'd like to kind of get this right before the budget is being put together. So that was the attempt this time, but you'll see quite a few in the next board meeting for water demand related contracts.
So you will try to have those numbers, if possible, before
the budget. So all these numbers would actually go into the budget.
Yeah.
And to spread out the workload a little bit, so we get some now, some later, even later. Okay, no comments from the public that we know of.
Correct.
So we'll proceed with the vote. I'll take turns. I'll move that we adopt the recommendation.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. On to item number 7, which is.
Yeah, item 7.
Okay.
Item 7, recommends authorization of contract with the Plume Group for the district's annual financial audits. And as you know now, the district has used the accounting firm of Clifton Larson Allen, Hirsch and Roland, to conduct the district's financial audits for the last few decades. And the district entered into a contract in August of 2022. It looked like that was a stopgap contract because it expires at the end of this fiscal year. So staff did a formal procurement and an RFP. It was posted on the district's website and CSDA RFP clearinghouse. We also reached out to multiple firms and we received proposals from 4 firms. Staff looked at qualifications, experience, audit approach, and the auditor's commitment to a state and local government practice. And all 4 firms were well qualified, but staff is recommending to enter into a contract with the Plume Group for a number of reasons. Number one, as a licensed CPA firm, they have the relevant experience and qualified staff. And they have done audits for a number of public jurisdictions, including water districts. They are also the auditor for the Carmel Area Wastewater Project, which is an enterprise fund to the district. And so we think there would be synergies to have the same auditor because we cannot complete our audit until the CARD audit is done. So we're hoping that by having the same auditor, it's going to be a more streamlined effort at every round. And then the Prune Group, has earned this Best of Accounting Award for exceptional client service number of years in a row. Their pricing was within 5% of the lowest price that we received. So for all those reasons, staff's recommending entering their contract with them, and we are proposing a multi-year agreement because it takes a while to come up to speed. The nuances that the new auditor would know. So even though it might entail a little bit more work in the first year, I think in the remaining years, it would be beneficial for the district to have them. And we also reached out to the Carmel Wastewater District team, and they said that they intend to stay with the Prune Group for the coming years. So for those reasons, the staff report recommends entering into a 5-year agreement with 2 1-year options to renew and enter into contract with this company. That's staff report.
Yes.
Comment, yeah. So I was very impressed by their proposal. And so, of course, I didn't review the other proposals. I have never reviewed a proposal for this specific type of service, so I don't have a frame of reference to compare, but it looks very, very professional and very serious proposal. I'm like, they really want the work. Mm-hmm. And they're also doing providing services to City of Pacific Grove, Marina Coast Water District, to
City of Salinas, yeah. So like the Marina Coast Water District as well.
So it'd be easy to find out, how that's gone with those neighbors. But they seem very have a lot of relevant experience and a very well put together proposal.
Yeah.
Current auditors did not apply and take it.
They did not, and I'm not sure if they just missed their RFP or, what the reason was, but I didn't receive a proposal from them.
I noticed that in the proposal that they provide a range of services. Some go beyond the annual audit that we.
That is right. So besides the annual audit, they will assist with the compilation of the annual comprehensive financial report and the state controller's report. So once the audit is done by the end of December, then there's a state controller's report that's due by the end of January. It's usually the auditing firm that kind of helps because they've done the audit. So that's standard practice for most public jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So they would be assisting with that as well.
Yeah, but just crossed my mind, should we ever need any of the additional services that they provide, that they might, we might be able to provide after. I'm just thinking ahead because we do have some complicated financial
related services, and yes, we could engage them for additional scope of work, and we can talk about it. I am not aware of what that might entail.
Anyway, it looks very good to me.
Very good, very professional, very extensive experience throughout the Bay Area.
Including some water districts.
Including water, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, no public comment available? Or not?
No members of the public.
Okay, proceed to a vote.
Do we have a motion?
So we have a motion, yes.
We do.
No, we don't.
All right, so I move to adopt the staff recommendation.
And I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I have one question I forgot. I did have a note on this one. The motion carries. At the bottom of page 33, it says, the Prune Group won the best, 2025 Best of the County Award. What's the source of that award? Who makes that award? Probably some national organization or state organization. I'm not sure. I'm just curious.
Clearly,
Grandparents.
well, yeah. Clearlyrated.com.
I just curious.
Yeah, it's a J Power things, they must have some organization that's taken upon them to do it, but I don't know anything. about it.
Yeah, I like the grandparent comment. Okay, we're up to item 8. We are at,
8 and 9 are clearly informational.
that's right.
If you have questions.
No comments from me. And, any other? Not at all. We're gonna go over to item number 10, discussion on the,
So I just handed out
okay,
to you two and earlier to Sarah and Michelle. These are the adopted strategic goals and objectives from the March board meeting. And the goal has been to follow up with each committee where the overlap is. And so you turn this one over and the highlighted yellow is pretty much the mission, both of the Finance and Administration Committee, as well as our goal area number 5, which is protect, enhance, and maintain the district's financial health. And, a couple of things in that, you're always looking at these treasurer's reports and, eyeballing the check register and seeing where monies are going and what's coming in and out, which is good. We had conversation about do global forces impact our portfolio, which is good. And the other 2 areas that we've talked about paying close attention to this year are our revenue forecasts because of the loss of the water supply charge to the taxpayers lawsuit. So we need to ensure that we're pretty good predictors of our income now that it's kind of really focused on the user fee on the CalAm bill as well as continued property tax receipts. And then at some point, a reserve policy that'll come up again and again, because before we give up any of the user fee, now that we've lost the water supply charge, we talked actually about both those fees, eventually capping them because you don't want to just collect money with no purpose. Well, we also kind of need to define the floor of how much money do we need as protection for what may happen on the expense side. And so I think those are the 2 highlights for this year. Regular revenue growth get us out from the loss of the water supply charge, and can we accommodate that and therefore not need to go to another Prop 218 rate case, next year while we're giving up the ability to do it next year as part of the settlement. But then also, how much should we not dip below while we're still out there with, say, Measure J, the acquisition of the water system and others, or future. So John's trying to get CalAm to commit to replumb ASR well number 4 as an injection only well. If they don't do that and they want to maintain it as a production well, then we still have that kind of 5th well on our minds if we could position it. Engineering wise, Marines determined that it's hard to get a drill rig in underneath the high voltage transmission lines that go over the ASR site unless we got more land. But we would really benefit by having an additional ASR well to maximize input over here on this side of the system. Well, that's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. So we have our dreams, but we also have our realities, like the acquisition of the Monterey water system, that if it gets thwarted in the bench trial, then we're going to be on the hook and so forth. If it goes to the valuation file and we choose not to move forward, we're going to be on the hook. And that's where our reserves come in. So again, we'll probably we'll schedule an item to talk about those things.
As part of the budget workshop.
I think in the budget workshop, we should talk about it. And, we've been holding placeholders and we've done, 100,000 a year for OPEB and 100,000 a year for PERS liabilities. But, you know, our CFO hasn't said, this is my policy. He said, that's fine, but at some point you may want to look at it a little more.
I have ideas.
He has ideas. So.
We'd like to hear them.
Well, thank you for having these items here. These are all interesting projects. I'd love to work on all of these.
Well, that's good to hear too.
Yeah, so that's our overall bill.
Before we leave.
Yeah.
Potential litigation in the future. Is there a way to have that discussion in closed session? But
Are you expecting something or do you want to sue somebody?
no, either one of those,
Okay,
hopefully, but just the likelihood of being sued again. Another challenge somewhere along the line, you have a choice to make. I guess, I don't know. I just think we ought to have some discussion about what that outer limit might look like as well. If there is one.
If we go into any discussions of litigation risk of particular cases, that could be a closed session discussion, but if we're just talking about on the basis of publicly available information about the various cases, about the financial aspect, that could be, Fran, you can tell me if you agree that to that extent, we could talk in open session. That's what.
That's correct. Anything that is listed in the district council's public report would be something that could be discussed openly. You probably would, if you're strategizing as to where you're going, that is something you should maintain in closed session. That's when your counsel comes out and either says a no reportable action or the board provided direction to counsel. Because if it's strategy as to what you're going to do, that is not something you want to share with the public, because it gives whoever you're considering either suing or being sued by where you're going, and you have no obligation to do that.
Okay, well, that clarifies it for me. I just think we ought to have a double barrel approach. One's in closed session and then whatever's in public would obviously be the other barrel.
yeah, I don't think we have anything to give you at the board meeting next week. No reason to change that, but let's talk about it during chair, vice chair.
Okay.
About adding when you might want to add
Okay,
an update.
okay. Well, that sounds fine to me. It's nice to see this yellow highlighted things. So I'm glad to see that.
Well, it's interesting because Director Lindor was the one who said, yeah, we should then take these and remap them to the various committees that are going to consider them.
Yeah.
I thought,
Never
it's kind of obvious. Why didn't anybody think of that before? And so I think it's just good. So each committee's having a little sampling. You know, we did a water demand committee with a few of actually all their items fell under goal area 1. You know, supply demand analysis and things like that. So super.
It's just another way to think about how we organize the work.
Yeah, well done, well done.
Fresh eyes.
So item 11 is the regular board meeting agenda. I'm beginning to believe the version I'm holding in front of me is not the most recent version, but because it's a very light agenda, it's probably not going to matter. So everything that you just went through with Nichelle will be on consent. You know, the contract approvals and those kind of things. So the only real items of reporting, I believe that was Stephanie going to do an update on the amnesty? Yeah.
Yes, you.
Or did I move that to next month?
To put it with info items as a. The
Oh, that's-
report for the water demand.
Right. I think what Water Demand Committee said is I encourage them to do a detailed update in either May or June.
Okay. Right.
And in the meantime, just point to the informational item because they have a paragraph of updating in the, okay, so we're good on that one. We're not ready to bring a first draft ordinance to rescind the ordinance 152 because we haven't gotten the settlement in yet.
Mhm.
I'd like to do the first read of the ordinance after the settlement's been submitted, but then hold the second read for the settlement being approved. Because if there was a change or a delay, I don't think we want necessarily to rescind until we resolve those things, but I think it will be approved. And what you see is an action item here, the removal of 9 ordinances. This may change slightly to include resolutions, but I haven't gone through the resolution list yet, so.
Now, that item surprised me, because why would we have on the website ordinances that never were adopted?
And frankly, administratively, I could just choose to do this, but I wanted the board to understand that somehow past policy had been to post proposed ordinances that did not get approved or that no action was taken. And I'll confess, 13 years ago, I said, that's dumb. I'm finally getting around to, and what made me look at it again was the new website. And I, in reviewing every page of the website, I'm like, okay, if you didn't enact it, it shouldn't be out there. This is not like a historical curiosity of what was the board thinking of in 2008. Oh, here's an idea they had. They never acted on it. It's just, it
Can go into the archives.
go into the archives. But if it was an ordinance that was passed and later rescinded, then it has a purpose. So it should be the law of the district as approved by the district board, not just
Proposal.
Things that were considered.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, late bloomers come in all ages, I guess.
yeah.
Was there something more they're going to be added that?
I was just going to provide an update on upcoming items, if that's okay. The Pure Water Monterey expansion held its public hearing last week, and so that means we're a step closer to approving the Title 22 engineering report. What that will mean coming forward is when we first started operating Pure Water Monterey base project, the district created an ordinance, and it was the ordinance of no drilling of wells and secondary study. In that ordinance, we said that if the map changes, it can be changed through a resolution of the board. So as this, when this report gets approved, we will be bringing an updated map that is going to be changing the geography of that zone because we have 2 more wells injecting. So we'll be bringing that as we come through the permitting process. We will have to have that done before we can operate.
And Seaside is very anxious about that. Were you able to direct Andreas to the right proposed or contemplated?
Yes, City of Seaside had asked us, they're interested in siting a new well to support their development. They had given us a map with 7 locations on it, which we then evaluated with the zone because some of them were within this zone of secondary study. So the district said we will evaluate them with our contractor, and we came back with a letter that said all 7 of these zones that you have chosen are fine, but then the zone 2 that they had chosen is just slightly north of the reservoir well. So we're internally talking on the Pure Water Monterey hydrogeology team. So the letter itself doesn't directly say that well is okay to use, but the work that was done to write that letter likely can be used to do that.
So anyway,
Okay,
expanding the no-fly zone, so to speak, whatever you want to call it, the no pump zone.
a resolution.
Yeah, it's by ordinance, right?
An ordinance was created.
That it allowed modification by resolution in the future. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we'll bring it via resolution. But expect that it's not just going to be an undiscussed slam dunk because Seaside's interests. They'll want to make sure. Sarah, was there anything else added that I missed on my draft?
No.
Okay, so it is a pretty light board meeting. Which I don't think we should complain about. If it happens,
we
it
shouldn't.
happens.
Agreed.
Well, thank you. Nothing more to add? Nothing from you? Nothing from me? Meeting adjourned.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks for being the alternate. You needed you.